Well, hello, everybody.
Well, hello, Pastor Ben.
Good to have you back in the studio.
It's good to be back in the studio.
Yeah.
How about that?
How about that, right?
Yeah, it's been a little bit.
It has been a little bit.
Gosh, that's wild.
Yeah. You were here 4 episodes ago.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
We all have our moments when we're gone. It's okay. It's all good.
Yeah, this one was. Well, I guess I expected to be out a couple.
Yeah. You
And
didn't
then-
expect Tuesday.
I didn't expect Tuesday, but sometimes
Life
Tuesday's
gets
just
in
a
the
little
way.
too much.
Yeah, life gets in the way.
Life gets life gets in the way.
But as I said to you earlier, it wasn't about the broadcast. It was about creating a reason to skip council.
Oh yes. That's it right there.
So,
yeah.
council members, if you're watching, now you know the real. No.
Oh
So
my
we had
gosh.
the Lent opening, right? We've been using the Lent.
We have been
bumper.
using the Lenten opening.
And believe it or not, our head of technology, our tech director,
Yes.
says, while the video was playing, that the 40 days of Lent represent the time that Jesus was in the wilderness. And at the end of that, he was, tempted by the devil. You know the story, of
Yes.
course. But he looks at me, and I'm like, "You are correct."
There's
So-
all kinds of they like to tie these things in multiple ways, but that is the 40 days right
40
there.
days of Jesus in the desert. Of course, it doesn't really say how long, but it is that symbolic thing. And and Eric was proud, and he patted himself on the back
Yeah.
as the credits were rolling, and he
Yeah.
said, "I went to Jesus school," and he was so happy. So
He was.
I
He was
wanted to
very
I wanted
delighted.
to lift him up in this moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
He says, "Thank you, everybody." So when you see him on the weekends, just tell him he was a good kid in Sunday school. So the 40 days, I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay. 40 days.
The 40 days represent of Lent also represent not only Jesus in the wilderness, but Jesus essentially redoing in a mini way the 40 years in the wilderness that the children of Israel,
Yes.
which therefore means, see, if you miss today, you're missing everything. If you're not tuned in right now, you're missing all of it.
Oh, this is we're getting it all
getting
here.
it all
we're,
in.
we're going the whole
The whole thing.
spectrum here.
Right. So you guys are privileged in this just to be here. So therefore, our sermon series on spirituals and the Exodus really fit a good Lenten theme, thinking about Jesus in the wilderness. And often the academic word is recapitulating the Exodus moment. And we just went back to the original story to essentially cross the Jordan and enter into Jerusalem this week with Jesus. How about that?
How about that? Yeah.
Eric,
Yep.
did you ever think that this was going to be something that all came? You like completed the whole Lenten picture for us in one moment, He
Just
says
in that
no.
moment. Yeah.
but he did. So
It all
it
comes
all
together.
comes together. It's one full circle right there.
Mm-hmm.
So that is good. And we are coming into Palm Sunday this weekend.
Yes. So we leave the 40 days and go into Holy Week.
That's right. And it's interesting because, not that anybody really cares, but liturgically speaking, it's kind of no man's land because, we have each season has a color associated with it.
Yes.
Right? We're still in purple on Palm Sunday, which is the season of Lent, but we're not technically in Lent once Holy Week begins.
Right.
But in the liturgical calendar, they say you could use like something like gray, which I think it's like greeting cards. It's like a parament company saying,
Yeah.
"Here, buy another
Yes.
parament for Palm Sunday."
For Palm Sunday.
and have a different color altogether, right?
Right, and I think isn't there like a crimson or option or
red,
something
yeah, dark
for
red.
for Monday, Thursday?
Yeah, and also for Palm Sunday. But like, there comes a point where you're like, I think the altar cloths that we have will suffice.
I
Right?
think they do
Right?
suffice.
We're covered. We're covered.
Yes, yes.
mean-
I have seen pastors who had like a black stole and some black cloths for a Good Friday.
Right, and I know that.
I have not purchased those myself.
And I know somewhere within Roman Catholic liturgical, there's pink somewhere in there too. I mean, I'm not in necessarily for Lent, but there's pink in there and
Yes.
all sorts of great stuff.
For a feast somewhere.
Yes,
They'll have a
yes.
pink liturgical
Yes.
feast
And
to make
maybe,
sure you.
maybe they break it out on the third week of Advent too for joy, since it's a pink. I don't know, but
I mean, they probably could buy a separate one for
we're
that.
we're staying with purple. We're just staying with purple, right?
I think purple works.
Yeah, purple is passion. That's kind of where we're.
Yes.
Purple passion. There we go.
Purple and passion. That's
Yes.
that's how we.
That's how we roll here.
Yeah, that's how we roll.
Yep. So we look forward to that. And honestly, we've been, as a staff, we've been working really hard, not only kind of a week ahead, but we've been putting together Palm Sunday and Maundy, Thursday, and Good Friday, and Easter already. We have all those things put together. So we've been planning, and we think it's going to be a beautiful Holy Week for everybody. So.
Yeah.
We hope you can be a part of it, whether it's online or in person, because, and I'll say this weekend is, to jump from Palm Sunday to Easter, you miss some of the most important work that God does. A new covenant, his death, and just jumping to the resurrection, you miss something. So to participate, whether online or in person, I think really makes a meaningful week for anybody. So we hope that you can be a part of that, whatever that is. And it's going to be a busy one, so I think Juno's going to have to do more daycare next week.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably gonna need some time there because
some extra time.
It's a lot.
It,
A lot coming up.
it is a lot, but I'm excited. It'll be a good week for us. So you ready to go back this past week?
Yeah, go back to the past weekend.
Yep. We're going to, and I said this on Tuesday, we're going to revisit the last spiritual today. Soon I will be done with the trouble of this world, and we just can't say enough nice things about Nix Taylor and her voice and her kindness and her big heart that she shared with us.
Oh my gosh, wonderful.
So with that, let's take a listen and we'll talk.
Soon I will be done. The trouble of the world, the trouble of the world, the trouble of the world. Soon I will be done. The trouble of the world. We're going home to be with God. No more weeping and wailing. No more weeping and wailing. No more weeping and wailing. We're going home to be with God. I want to see my mother. I want to see my mother. 'Cause soon I will be done with the troubles of the world. We're going home to be with God.
Love that voice.
Wow. She
Love
has
that
just
voice.
been incredible. I mean, every single one of the spirituals she
That's
did.
right.
And all of them that were done. It was just incredible.
Revisiting the history, we opened with "Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child," and that's the first time that we all got to meet and exposed to Nix Taylor. And I think even on that first worship Saturday night, all of our jaws just dropped.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
Just went-
very powerful.
Yep, yep. So we just give thanks that she said yes, and we will look for opportunities to invite her back.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's incredible.
So this hymn comes to us as a spiritual, and I mentioned on Sunday, but I want to go back to it, that it was mentioned in print in a story called the Fisk Jubilee Singers, the story of the Fisk Jubilee Singers. This song is mentioned, and then it also a variation of it in an 1867 hymnal as well. And that hymn was called, or the spiritual was called, "These All My Father's Children." And the reason I say it like that is often things were written out phonetically back
Sure.
in the day. And it's interesting because I actually took some time today to look at the lyrics of "These All My Father's Children," and one of the lines, and here's that connection: "My father's done with the troubles o' the world." So you can see that this one might have been a variation of "Soon I Will Be Done with it." Like, you start singing it in one place where there's no connection to another place, plantations, and it might morph or it might change a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So, so there are a couple of variations of this, but I was curious because I was like, when did this whole crossing the Jordan move from the story in Joshua to a metaphor for crossing into heaven? So I kind of did a deep dive today on that. And what I discovered is the first place in written form goes all the way back to 1678.
Really?
And there was an English preacher by the name of John Bunyan.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've ever heard of John
I
Bunyan.
have heard of John Bunyan,
And-
but
And he wrote a very famous book, might be too strong, but at least a treatise called The Pilgrim's Progress, which a lot of people have heard of.
yeah, I
And-
forget which which class I went back to and
Had
was reading
that,
part
right?
of that. Yeah.
And it is in that book that John Bunyan uses the metaphor, at least written for the first time in a literary sense, of crossing the Jordan is a metaphor for going to heaven. And yes, I made sure when doing my research, I went and found Pilgrim's Progress and found
The passage.
the passage. Because I
Oh.
will tell you, you can do research and someone might tell you something
yeah.
and it may be not right. So
that is true.
you got to go back to the source. If you're going to say something, you want to be able to say it with confidence.
Yes.
So
And I know I at least have read part of Pilgrim's Progress, but I would not have been able to call you out whether you were right or
Right or
wrong
wrong.
on if that was in there. I
Yeah.
did not remember.
but I went the extra
but
mile
you did
anyways.
the extra mile
The
anyway,
extra mile.
even though I wasn't going to fact check you.
Now, John Bunyan was an interesting guy. Before we get into the biblical
Okay.
today, John Bunyan, he followed in his father's footsteps, being what they call a tinker, which is one who repaired pots and pans that cracked, like melting in and
Okay.
reforging pots and pans.
Interesting.
Probably, unfortunately, back then they probably used lead, which is probably not great, but
Lead was so helpful until they realized
it'll kill you.
it will kill you.
And make you go crazy.
Yeah.
But other than that,
Yeah.
but sometime during his young adulthood, he got called by God to be a preacher. And he started preaching. And there came a point when the monarchy, which regained power after the Oliver Cromwell days, it reinstituted the monarchy, and they cracked down on religion in the sense that it had to be, one way of doing religion, the state church. And he was known as a non-conformist preacher. That's the title. Now, I had to dig a little bit deeper on that too, and discovered that essentially means he didn't go to seminary, and he wasn't part of the Church of England or the Roman Catholic Church. He was just a preacher.
Okay.
I think the easiest way to understand that today, no slight intended, would be like, oh, he was non-denominational.
Yeah, that's
You
what
know
it
what I'm
sounds like.
saying?
Yeah.
And he actually went to prison for 12 years because he wouldn't stop preaching because he wasn't a part of the church
Is that right?
sanctioned by the monarchy. And it was during that time that he wrote Pilgrim's Progress and other things. And then he got out and still preached, and then he went back to prison again. So, but he does have quite a grave marker in England. So, in other words, he is well remembered, and people still pay tribute. And he has
Interesting.
I looked at the picture of it, a beautiful grave where kind of stone monument of him laid out. So, I mean, it's really quite fancy. But that's John Bunyan is the first guy to talk about crossing the Jordan as a metaphor for
Interesting.
going to heaven.
Okay.
So the song itself obviously expresses this hope and desperation in this life, but the hope for the next. And one of the places I wanted to go to, I talked on Sunday about Revelation 21, which is that place where John sees the fact that God kind of says, I'm going to live with my people now, and I'm going to wipe away every tear, and I'm going to make sure the old order of things, the way things are now, are gone, and that God will dwell with his people. That's Revelation 21. But before we get to that, if you jump all the way back to the first chapter in Revelation, which John the disciple, the one who is brother of James and John the fishermen, he has, and the whole book Revelation, there's only one.
Is that true?
It's not plural. Yeah, it's
Oh.
not plural. There's only
Yeah.
one Revelation. Lots
Picked up
to
right
it,
where,
but it's
where I
only
left
one.
off.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
yes.
Just in case you forgot while you were gone in Colorado.
You want to just
still one
drive it
Revelation.
home.
Yeah.
Drive it home.
He has a vision of, in quotes, someone like the Son of Man. So I want to read this to you, and there's a reason I'm going to share this with you. So Revelation 1, 13 and 15, and then jump to 17, 18. So listen to this. John says, I saw someone like a son of man. He was dressed in a robe, reaching down to his feet with a golden sash around his chest. His head and hair were white as wool and as white as snow, and his eyes were blazing like fire. His feet were like bronze glowing in a furnace, and his voice was like the sound of rushing waters. Really a powerful image. And then I jumped down to 17. He said, when I saw him, I fell at his feet as though dead. And he placed his right hand on me, and he said, do not be afraid. I am the first, and I am the last. I am the Alpha, and I am the Omega. I am the living one. I was dead, and behold, I am alive forever and ever, and I hold the keys to death and Hades. Now that's an image.
Yeah.
That's a vision.
That is the whole Revelation. That is,
It's a vision.
yeah. He knew how to paint a picture
Yes,
that was
he
kind
did.
of made
Vivid.
you. Yes, vivid is the word.
Vivid.
Yes, yes.
And so the reason I shared this is I think to myself, if we're going to think about what it means to cross the Jordan, symbolically, go to heaven, and you think, well, is this pie in the sky? Is this too good to be true? I wanted to show you kind of what John knew Jesus in his life. So when he sees him in this glorified form, he doesn't really recognize him in that way. He's like, hey, Jesus, long time no
it's interesting,
see,
isn't
right?
it? Yeah, yeah.
And because he's so different in this glorified form, but what it illustrates is the actual power and majesty of God, of Jesus. Jesus is God. And if Jesus holds the keys to death and Hades, and he has an appearance like that, which shows us his true power, then when we think about us going to heaven, crossing the Jordan, you go, well, that's a piece of cake for God. I was once dead, but now I'm alive forever and ever. I hold the keys to death and Hades. In other words, I control it all.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem a far stretch to me to be able to pass from this life and move forward, not on my own, but in one who holds it all, to a place of serenity and to be living at, in a lot of ways, in the afterlife, living at a different frequency than we live here. And if he holds that power, that we can switch that frequency once we say goodbye to, what they say, this mortal coil, then this is a piece of cake. So I think that imagery of power really helps solidify for us the ability of what God can do for us.
Yeah.
I think it's important to hold on to
Yeah.
have hope for what is to come. Now, the next verse, also playing into this, is something that Jesus said that John once again recorded in his gospel, and it's something we all know, but I want to talk about this in a little bit different way today.
Okay. So from, the Gospel of John now, chapter 14, verse 2. In my Father's house there are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. I am going there to prepare a place for you.
Very familiar, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think, if not every funeral I've done, very close to every memorial funeral service that I've done. These verses have been a part of it.
Yep. And they bring great comfort.
Yeah.
Now, about
Jesus' words to us, promises.
Yeah. So the only difference between the New International NIV version, which we read predominantly out of, and the King James, so the old King James, is instead of in my Father's house there are many rooms, the only difference in this whole verse is in my Father's house there are many mansions. Okay? So think about, for a second, not that we can place ourselves there, but think about that was probably the version being read, in the 1800s throughout
Sure.
the United States, King James.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty well accepted. Now imagine hearing that in a clabbered slave church,
Yeah.
being in captivity. In my Father's mansion, there are many rooms. If it were not so, I have told you, I'm going there to prepare a place for you, okay? So, first of all, Jesus is saying, you're going to live with me in the big house.
Yes.
First, that was not the case in the old plantation system.
You were not invited into the house.
into the
with
house
yeah.
unless you were working.
Yeah.
And then you were sent back. And not only would you have, according to King James, not only would you have, not just have a room, but within God's house, every room in itself is a mansion. I mean, that's kind of really in my Father's house, there are many mansions. So it's as if to say every room in God's house is its own mansion.
It's
gets
kind of
bigger and bigger, right?
Yeah.
And to say, not only do I get to live in the big house because my Father welcomes me, but my room is not in the back, off the back of the house, or even farther out in
Right.
slave quarters, but I get a mansion within my Father's house.
Yeah.
Second thing, when I hear this and hear this promise, is Jesus says, I'm going there to prepare a place for you.
Right.
If
And
you were
this
a
is-
slave-
and it's just for you. I mean,
And if you were a slave,
have
you
that.
were doing all the preparing, right? I mean, this is radical stuff.
it is radical stuff, and how much that speaks to people throughout the ages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It speaks to us differently, mind you.
It speaks to us differently, but it does through all the ages. But you imagine people who have lived that terrible life.
Yeah.
What was done to them,
Yep.
but then to see that promise.
And Jesus saying, I'm serving you. And your days of servitude is over. Forced servitude. That you get to live in God's house and your room will be like a mansion. I mean, what a promise.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful imagery. And, obviously we are not in that context and we can't even compare in terms of suffering and struggle, have any idea, or even to,
Right. No,
Yeah.
100% agree. But we don't ever want to get caught in the mindset of, if I'm blessed right now, somebody else is downtrodden, I must be better than them somehow.
right.
When Jesus taught this servant mentality, that he came to serve and not to be served,
yep,
and how so many people, I mean, obviously the slave masters back then,
Yeah.
wanting all to be served and to live that kind of life. But Jesus brings something very different. And it's interesting how Christianity, in some cases, can gloss right over that and forget that Jesus was a servant who cared about love and compassion and caring for the poor.
That's right. And in this case, Jesus is serving the least of these.
He's serving the least of these.
And the least of these against their will.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing, there's the rub on the other end of this, is your affluence is a problem if you're worried about, and I'm not accusing anybody, but if your affluence is a problem, if you're worried about that Jesus is preparing just a room in God's house for you, if you're worried about being confined to a room, you know that affluence has done something to your brain and it's not good if you're worried about that. But I have this big house here and and how am I going to, only have, in my Father's house there are many rooms, and if I only get one room and that'll be it. Affluence can be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not about stuff, folks.
No.
But you know that.
But yeah, that Jesus has a special place for each of us.
That's right. And, it goes back to that same theme of, we're not just citizens in the kingdom of God, but we've been adopted into the royal family, God's family. So that's different than being just a townsfolk. And that means we get to be at God's table and live in God's house. So good news for us, and absolutely good news for folks who were held against their will.
Yeah.
Now, let's go back originally to the place where, and we talked about this on Sunday, but that story of the people of Israel crossing the Jordan. Joshua 3:17. So the priests who carried the Ark of the Covenant stood firm on dry ground in the middle of the Jordan, while all Israel passed by until the whole nation had completed the crossing on dry ground. So in the Red Sea story, you have God telling Moses, take a step towards the Red Sea, and you got to move forward. And then the winds came and started piling up.
Yeah, and the people walked through on dry
people
ground.
walked through. This story, 40 years later, there has been the addition of the Ark of the Covenant, because that had not been built in Egypt. And God said, my Spirit's going to dwell above what we call the mercy seat, which are the two cherubims that had been created and placed on top of the Ark of the Covenant. And so this time God says, I go first, but I also will go last. Right? So they take a step into the water, and in some ways, the crossing of the Jordan is more fantastical or miraculous than the Red Sea crossing. Because if you read the story, God starts making the wind do its thing. As much as we like the Charlton Heston 10 Commandments, boom, that's not actually how the story goes.
Yeah.
That's actually more of the Jordan River. The priests take a step foot in and the water goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then God says, I'm going to wait in the middle of the Jordan while everybody passes by. So God not only is first into the water, but he's the last one out.
That's interesting.
Isn't that a really
Yeah,
fascinating?
that is interesting.
And what I said on Sunday is, God doesn't leave the stragglers behind. It's not like, well, you better keep up. God's like, I'm going to wait here until everyone is safely across.
No, it's true. That it just shows that presence of God.
Yeah.
With us through the times that we don't understand, the times that are difficult, that God is with us.
Doesn't leave anyone behind.
Preparing the place for us.
That's exactly
All of
right.
it.
All of that stuff. So, and I think, like I said, I'm really glad we were able to spend time over the last 5 weeks, not only in broadcast, but on Saturday and Sundays, dealing with this Exodus story. Because I had some folks tell me that they knew a lot of the Exodus story, but they didn't realize that the ending was God parting the Jordan River.
Yeah.
and
kind of
people walking
bookends there.
bookends, and that's the very words I used. But I had some people until this weekend said, I didn't realize that God also parted the Jordan River. So, so it's really good
There's
to
so much
cover
there.
stuff, so that if you missed part of the story, you didn't remember that, or never heard that part, you get to hear the whole thing. So we're glad we got to do that. So with that, we hope you can join us this weekend, starting on Saturday night at 5 o'clock Pacific time, and then Sunday morning, 8, 9:30, 11. We will begin that journey into Jerusalem with Jesus on what we call Palm Sunday weekend. And then you can join us all week long for the Holy Week festivities. And just so you know, we will have our normal Tuesday broadcast next week, but then Thursday will be our Thursday evening worship. And then, so that'll serve as our broadcast. We hope you can join us later. And then Good Friday, of course, we'll be back on with a service at noon and 6, which are the same. So
It's a busy week. It's a good week.
it's a good week. It's a holy week.
It's a
So,
holy week.
all right. So take care. We love you. God bless you. And Philip, will you play us out?